We have 1 minute.
All right, Chair Tran, we are good on YouTube, so feel free to call the meeting to order when you wish.
Okay, it is now 5 o'clock. I am going to call this meeting to order. This is the meeting, the FEDRAC meeting on June 23rd, 2020. I can't talk today. All right. The first thing is public comments. Do we have any public comments?
No, we don't.
No, we do.
We don't. Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to committee business. The first item. Oh, I'm sorry.
Chair
I
Tran?
supposed
Oh,
to
yeah,
make.
good.
I supposed to make the announcement that the item G is pulled from this meeting today. All right. So the first item is approval of summary minutes of May 26, 2020.
I move to approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, the minutes is passed 3-0. The second item is tourism enhancement grant recommendation presented by Tim Johnson.
Chair, Council
Hi, Tim.
President. Hi, how are you folks? Council members. What is before you tonight is the second round of the annual tourism enhancement grant program. Unfortunately, because of COVID, many of the applicants are unable or have not been unable to present their events this year. And two of them that are not taking any chances moving forward is the annual DESNA Cup and the regional barbershop, Western Regional Barbershop Championships. Would have been the first that we have hosted here in the area, but they both decided not to participate. Two that remain and that the committee took action on were for the Federal Way Knights annual baseball tournament. We require a phase 3 before they can get to present that, and hopefully by the middle of July, end of the month of July, we will be able to be in phase 3 for them to host that event. If not, will be unfortunate. And then the other event, which comes in late September at the Performing Arts and Event Center, is the Northern Bodybuilding Championship. This will be their second year in Federal Way. That one will be a little bit more difficult for them to present because of the way that the event is typically handled for the athletes on stage and keeping the spacing between the athletes, which normally are much more intimate and close to one another. But in any case, the award was for $1,500 for the Knights and $2,500 for the Northern Bodybuilding Championships. We had $40,000 set aside in the budget for this year. Nobody submitted anything for the first round, which was in March. It's obvious by the COVID virus at that time. And a sizable amount have dropped out and didn't apply into the second round. So total of just about 4,000, 10% of the total that we had allocated for this. But we're asking for your approval on the recommendation of the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee. And I'll take any question.
Community members, do you have any questions?
I do not.
Council President
No.
Honda.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim. Do they need to spend the money before they get it from the city? So is it reimbursed to them?
It would have to be reimbursed. It's a reimbursement grant. So yes, they do have to spend it, but we've had this done before, where the council has approved the award and then it was never used, and that's fine. It goes back into the fund and is used again next time.
So if they were to, can they use that for advertising and that kind of stuff? What?
Well, they can use it for advertising, although there really isn't much to advertise because it's an invitational. So the teams have already started manifesting themselves in the way of reservations in our hotels. So they're already headed that way. Predominantly where they use this money is to pay for fields because they normally use our fields. They will be relegated should they be able to do this event at the Federal Way Little League complex this year, since we're not hosting anything, any formal athletic events this year in the summer in our parks. So they will be relegated there. They will pay for the cost of the rental of that facility and for umpires. One other thing I would tell you that the in the chair of the committee, Councilmember Asif Dawson's online, the committee directed staff to look at a portable sanitizer that could be used by the tournament, for the tournament, and then be used at I'm picking up something sideways. I apologize. To be used, we've cross-checked. Our equipment won't come in with the city until late September, and we've been looking for other options. But because of the huge backlog on everyone's different types of equipment that are being sold right now, it's difficult to find. If you know of any, please let us know. We would. The committee would like to acquire that to be used not only for this year for the tournament, but also for other tournaments and future tournaments that would come at Celebration and any of our other parks for the purposes of fighting COVID-19. But at this point, we're still investigating.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Lydia, I see your hands up.
Lydia, you need to go to take your mute off.
Thank you. No, my hand was raised to add what Tim just said, so it's covered. Thank you so much, Tim, for your presentation. I was just going to add that, so about the sanitation ports.
And it is important because we had a conversation with the Seattle Mariners 2.5 weeks ago, and they said that, you know, the key issue is that a baseball now becomes aerial virus so it's one of the things that needs to be considered, and specifically for the youngsters.
Thank you, Tim. I forgot one thing, and I want to apologize. I forgot to ask a member of the committee and council members and staff to identify themselves for the purpose of identification. So can we take just a quick minute to go back and introduce ourselves? Huang Tran, Chair of FEDRAC.
Linda Kochmar, member of FEDRAC, council member.
Thank you.
Mark Kopang, council member and member of FEDRAC.
Council members?
Susan Honda.
Sorry, Susan, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay, Susan Honda, Council President. Thank you, Greg.
You're welcome. Councilmember Greg Baruso.
Councilmember Lydia Sapadowson.
Ade Aruola, Finance Director, Staff Support.
Thank you.
Ryan
Don
Cobb,
Hutton,
City
Parks
Attorney,
Director.
staff.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Don Hutton, Parks Director.
Tim Johnson,
Okay.
Director, Economic Development.
Thank you, Tim. Okay, anybody else on the line that want to identify themselves? All right, again, I apologize. I completely forgot about that. All right, moving on. Is there any other discussion on this item B? If not, may I have the motion?
Chair Tran, I move to forward the proposed agreement for the tourism enhancement recommendations to the July 7th, 2020 consent agenda for approval.
I will second that.
Thank you. If there are any other questions or discussion on the subject? If not, please say aye if you.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Am I breaking up?
A little bit. That's okay.
Sorry about that. Okay. Item C, 2020
ask the-
cops hiring. I'm sorry.
Chair Tran, I'm sorry. Could you summarize the results of that vote? It was a little chunky.
The result of the vote is 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next item is 2020 cops hiring program grant.
Council President, Committee Chair, and council members, my name is Kurt Schwan. I'm a commander with the Federal Way Police Department. And in front of you have a packet which includes a staff report for the 2020 COPS grant, which is a grant for $750,000 from the Department of Justice to assist us in the hiring of 6 police officers over a 3-year span. During that span, we can immediately start drawing on this funding starting in October of this year, just so you're aware of it. This is something we've done numerous times in the past. It's a grant that we are well versed in, and the city has accepted several times, and we're asking for you to approve the acceptance of that grant.
Thank you. Committee members, any questions?
One question. Kurt, what is the environment like right now for hiring? We have a pool of applicants ready, willing, and able.
Yes, we have been continuing to hire throughout this process. We have a couple of vacancies right now. However, we've been doing Skype interviews, and we're doing our own PAT testing right now, our own physical agility testing on top of the written tests. So the only thing that's slowed us down a little bit is technology, unfortunately, but we are still going right through and hiring on a regular basis.
Right. Thank you.
Lydia, go ahead.
Yes, are those funds only for hiring, or could they be used for other officer related, like training or any other usage for it that we can have?
This is a salary and benefits only grant.
Thank you, Lydia. Committee members, Koshmar.
Thank you very much, Chair Tran. So it's a $750,000 grant over a 3-year period, correct?
Correct.
Officer Schwan. Okay, so starting in October, then we'll be able to hire 3 officers, and the 750 will include also their benefits and their the ability to use a police vehicle, correct? Does the grant cover just salary or benefits?
The salary and medical and health benefits, that type of stuff. Not as much
Okay.
as the vehicle.
Okay, can you just give me an idea when we hire officers in, what's our average hiring salary?
I'd have to go back and look, but I think we're in the upper $70,000 range for entry level officers.
Yeah, you know, we were looking at the average salary for the city of Seattle for officers. My heavens, they are a lot higher.
Yes.
Although I don't think I would want to be a police officer in the city of Seattle personally, but I would personally rather be a police officer in the city of FEDRAC. But my goodness. So anyway, bless you all. Hard job. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Just for the record, for the council to fully understand that there's a matching requirement for this. So the city will have to come up with a matching grant, and also, as Lieutenant said, the equipment will fall on the city. The city will have to provide the equipment for these officers. It will only cover, I think, about 70–60% of the salary. And the city is also required to keep this officer after the 3 years. So.
Thank you, Ade. Council President Honda, please go ahead.
Thank you. So we would have the 3 years then to hire the 6 officers? Is that correct?
But the money is for 3 years. You have to start hiring them now, and they will fund those officers for 3 years. That is what is $750,000. So you have about $250,000 per year to hire 6 officers. So as I said, we will have to come up with a percentage of the total cost. So they'll pay, and they will pay maybe about 70% of the total labor cost. Then we'll pay the balance depending on the rate that we bring somebody on board. Then we'll have to cover the equipment for that officer as well.
So then we would hire all 6 of them as quickly as possible? Is that what I'm hearing?
The goal would be to hire them as soon as we can sign the agreement with Department of Justice
Okay.
and start drawing on those funds immediately.
So how many officers will that put us at? What
That would
would
be
the number?
That would be 140 sworn personnel.
Do we have anyone retiring in the next year, 3 years? That,
I have 2 retirements pending in the next 2 weeks.
oh. Huh.
Good for them.
Very good for them.
So are we, when you hire a new officer at this point, would you look for someone that we have to send to the academy, or would you look for a lateral officer?
This grant is focused on entry-level officers. That's the pay rate that we've scheduled it at. So these would all be
Okay.
entry-level basic officers.
Kurt, my understanding is lateral moves are pretty rare right now for our department.
They are a little bit. We actually have a commitment from a gentleman from Philadelphia who will be starting on August 1st. And then we are testing shockingly enough, a Seattle police officer tomorrow.
Wow.
Right.
He's going to do a written test for us tomorrow, and then we'll have an oral board immediately following, and hopefully we'll proceed with the hiring of another lateral as well.
Good. Well, that's interesting.
So I have a couple more questions. So the equipment and like the cars, the computers and that kind of stuff, we need to have the money for. Do we have that money a day that we will be able to provide the officers with the equipment that they need?
As of now, based on the information that I have been sharing with you, we have a major loss of revenue in sales tax, a major loss of revenue in traffic light due to the lockdown, a major loss of revenue in Prop 1. And yes, I think with the Supreme Court judgment. I'm so happy with that. But, so that will be there. But we have several major loss of revenue. And with Performing Arts Center, Dumont Bay, and Community Center, that we will have to carry. If you go back to my presentation last week, not only are we losing revenue, but we're having to take money away from general fund to be able to support those entities. But I think it depends on the priority of the city and what we intend to do.
The public safety is our highest priority.
If I could add one thing as well, not all of these individuals will just automatically get vehicles. Most of them currently are using fleet vehicles. So additional supplies will be necessary, but it wouldn't be 6 of everything for everybody.
Okay. I mean, our goal is to get to at least 140 officers, I believe. So, yeah. I support it. I'm just concerned about finances. I would like more officers than 140 if we could do it. I'm just concerned about the finances of it all.
Very understandable.
So, but this is it's a lot of money. It wouldn't be a good idea to turn it down, in my opinion, but we just need to be prepared for what we need to cover. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Committee member Kochmar.
Oh, sorry, I didn't lower my hand. I was trying to figure out how to do that.
Okay.
But I do have a motion if you're ready.
I just
okay,
have a quick question with Ade. Ade, so you mentioned that we have to make up about 25% of the expenditure. Do you have any idea in terms of dollars? How much is that?
It will depend. I think it will depend on what level. I think, as was pointed out, that it will be entry level. If it is entry level, I think if we are paying, it probably will go about per officer, probably about 30,000.
Okay.
And I think if we don't need equipment, at least the vehicle for them, that will be, but if we do need vehicle for them, that would be on top of that.
Okay. And then after 3 years, after this grant is gone, do we have ability to continue with this added expenditure?
Well, that depends on if we go into recession, because at that time, that means we will be carrying the entire burden of the 6 officers. So if the economy grows well, we probably will. Or if the economy doesn't, it will be very, very hard for the city to deal with. I think we're struggling now, but again, I think this economic condition is unlike what we've dealt with before. It's much of not a financial collapse, it's much of an health issue. So depending on how this thing drags on, I think if our sales tax comes back soundly, we'll be fine. But that just means you're adding average of for 6 officers, you're adding average of $600,000 a year.
Councilmember Tran, if I could chime in at this moment.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Your commitment tonight for the 6 officers for COPS, accepting this grant, does not mean later on as your budget process moves forward or 3 years from now that you're committed to keeping 140 officers. The 6 officers that we identify, obviously, you don't lay them off or anything like that. But let's say we get into a major financial, reduction in revenue, you do have the ability to, reduce police department budget, which ultimately means FTEs. So Department of Justice is aware of that. I mean, nobody has a crystal ball as to where we'll be in a year from now, 3 years from now. So I don't want you to feel that by accepting this, grant that you can't go below 140 officers. We did exactly that during the Great Recession. We accepted 5 officer positions, but then the Great Recession came and we went all the way down to 122 officers. Now, since then, we've been kind of just building back up, and we are at 134, which puts us at 1.36 officers per thousand. And I think there's been talk over time to try to get up to 1.40, and having 140 officers today would bring us to 1.42 to be exact. So I want you to know that there is flexibility for the policy group moving forward. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Chief. That's really helpful. Thank you. I see Council President Honda hands is up.
Thank you. So by the time we get to year 4, we will, I'm sure, have more retirements in the department. So hiring those officers now, getting them trained, getting them on board would seem to be the most logical thing we should be doing, in my opinion. But
Definitely helps.
yeah.
Yeah, so we also have to take into consideration the earlier we can start this process, the better for us, because right now with the time crunch that we have with the academy and the extended time frame for getting people through the academy because of COVID and whatnot, we have several officers who we have yet to actually bring on the payroll who are waiting for academy dates to start. So once we can get them hired and into the academy, it's going to benefit the city greatly.
Can I ask
Thank
another
you.
question?
Yes, go ahead, please.
So we have officers waiting to go into the academy. Then we'll have these 6 that will need to go into the academy too. When do you foresee all of them being through the academy?
Well, that all just depends on the academy, actually. We have 4 officers here right now. We're waiting for academy dates to start in the next month, month and a half. And then we have 5 people waiting for academy dates that are more than a month or so out. So I typically don't bring them on to payroll until about 3 to 4 weeks before their academy dates, so we can get them acclimated to here, get them what they need, and then send them off. So they're doing other jobs, even though they know that they have a police job waiting for them here in the city. And then once we get the next 6 hired, we send those names off to the academy, and they give us the next academy dates that are available. So it's really hard for me to give you a specific time frame, but the urgency is to get them in sooner than later so we can lock in those academy dates. No matter how far out they are, we'll still have those dates locked in for this city.
Did the legislature not increase the amount of spots available for?
They moved some
the
classes
academy?
around last year, and they were working on increasing it. However, with COVID, everything stopped at the academy for almost a month and a half. So that's put everything way back and pushed the timelines back for everybody.
Has the academy opened up again?
The academy has opened up. It is not opened up fully though. So it's only taking, there are 4 classes on site now where it's typically, there are 6 classes going on at a time that are overlapping. So there are only 4 classes going on right now. And part of those classes are done remotely now by the students instead of all being done on campus.
Okay, thank you.
Committee member Kochmar.
Thank you very much, Chair Tran. Officer Schwan, remind me, with the 2 laterals, the one from Philadelphia, the one from Seattle, do they have to go through the full training program at the academy?
No, the Seattle officer won't have to.
Well,
do
that's wonderful.
Yeah, the Seattle officer won't have to do anything. The Philadelphia officer will have a 2-week equivalency academy to get them up to speed with Washington law.
Okay, well, that's wonderful. And it's wonderful to get the lateral officers because they're already trained and usually very experienced. So that's a good thing. Are we going to have, just out of curiosity, are we going to have any training with regard to, I know that there's going to be some new there already are federal regulations coming down for example, but we don't have chokeholds. We don't allow that. But with any other federal regulations that make, are we going to have training in-house for our officers regarding any new procedures?
Any regulations or guidelines that come down, we will either do an internal training or bring in an external instructor to get our people where they need to be. So we're following every rule and guideline that's been established by the lawmakers.
Okay. Well, I think that the Philadelphia and the officer from Seattle are very fortunate to be coming to our city. That's what I think. So thank you, Chair Tran. So if you want me to make a motion, I'm ready for that. If you'd like to ask more questions, please do so.
Yes, I think I don't see any hands up, so we are ready for the motion.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Then I move to forward the proposed grant to the July 7th, 2020 Council consent agenda for approval.
I'll second that.
Any other further discussion? If not, please say aye if you favor with this motion.
Aye.
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 The matter passed 3-0. Thank you, Commander.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to next item, PAC financial report. Autumn, are you online?
I am on the line. The report, thank you, council members, chair. The report this evening will actually be given by Brian Hoffman. Brian, are you on the line?
I am. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. I'm going to share my screen here, and let me know when everybody can see this.
We can see.
All right. So last month, well, first and foremost, good evening, council members. Last month you had requested to kind of do an update and/or roundtable where we were at the Performing Arts and Event Center. So we have a quick presentation here and open up to any questions and further discussions that you have in regards to the PAC. So just a brief background. The last event we held was on March 4th. It was the Federal Way Chamber Luncheon for about 85 people. We closed the facility on March 9th. And 3 days later, we furloughed 35 part-time staff members. And then the following day, 3 city departments were relocated here to the Performing Arts Center. They are located in 3 of our meeting spaces to continue social distancing. And on May 1st, we furloughed 3 full-time employees and leaving only on the Spectra staff payroll myself and our director of finance, who is currently working remotely. So the Washington's phased approach, everybody's well aware of this. We do have possibly some opportunities in phase 3. If we are allowed to operate like a movie theater, we could possibly host movies at a 50% capacity inside the theater portion of the facility, as well as hold some small meetings in our meeting space, less than 50 people, which we have done some social distancing mapping and outlines in our event space with 6 feet social distancing. For a banquet style event, we could accommodate 81 people, and that's utilizing all 3 spaces, the 2 meeting spaces and the west lobby. Once we get into phase 4, we can reopen with social distancing guidelines. If they were to stay in place, we would be able to approximately hold 188 people inside the theater. That is selling clusters of 2 to 4, social distancing, skipping 4 to 6 seats every other row, and staggering people in the theater. And then again, those additional meeting and banquet opportunities in the event space. Some of the things that we have done, you know, during this, we have had the ability to generate some revenue. We had in May, 7 days of Amazon truck driver training in the parking lot. There was 2 individuals, they were outside. You know, we were able to make about $3,500 after taxes. I think we netted $300 or $3,400, give or take. And then since this report was generated, we have entered into a contract with consultants for Amazon. We were on site last week, and then they will be back on site tomorrow. And we have actually looked at dates through the end of July, through July 31st to have them here. Throughout this, we have had approximately $22,000 a month in savings. Majority of that savings is due to all of the staff being furloughed. We have very, very minimal janitorial, you know, coming into the facility. They're still wiping everything down because we do have the city staff, but moving that back, we eliminated some of our monthly contracts that we had. And then obviously the utilities with, you know, no staff being in the building. We only turn the air on in the 3 rooms that the city departments are housed at this point in time. One of the next couple of slides, I just wanted to kind of give a quick snapshot of kind of our breakdowns when we do have an event. The example you see in front of you is, this is a theater event rental that is ticketed. So we charge them rent, labor, the credit card fees, and then any miscellaneous services that were associated with that event. So this particular event, I think the $200 was for a piano tuner to come in and tune the piano. And so we billed them $4,157. Our actual labor expenses were $1,958. Our miscellaneous services were $185. And then we allocated $500 for utilities to this particular event. So our actual expenses were $2,643.27. So the direct event income, or the difference, was $1,514. But also we were able to generate another $941.46 on ticket fees. And then this is our net concessions from the bar and concession area. So that particular event generated us a net income of $2,455.61. The next one is a non-ticketed theater event rental. So this might be a church organization or just a corporation coming in and renting the theater. Again, we have rent, labor, and then miscellaneous services billed, and then actually what our costs were. This one was a smaller event, so the utilities allocated to that event was $250. So the net event operating income for this particular event was just shy of $1,900, or just shy of $2,000, coming in at $1,945.41. And then our third example that we have is a catered event. This was a small catered event for about 40 people in one of our event space. This was midweek. I think this was a Tuesday or a Wednesday during business hours. So we have the catering cost at $1,848.60, which is what we billed. Our expenses from labor, utility, and food costs. So our total expenses came out at $1,576. So we net profited only $272.28 on that event after all the expenses and everything were paid. So, you know, with the whole social distancing and what we can and can't do, you know, we've kicked around some ideas, you know, possibly an outdoor home show on a small scale. We are in discussions with a spa company that they actually travel around, possibly doing an outdoor spa show. We can do that because that is considered retail. And in phase 2, you can do retail opening at limited capacity. Unfortunately, we can't do it inside because we can't fit a hot tub through the set of double doors and those types of things. But, you know, we are looking at that, you know, a possible flea market or community garage sale. And then we've reached out to a couple of restaurants that have food trucks to possibly host a food truck Fridays, you know, where folks one-stop shop, kind of maybe a drive-through type looking thing, or they can get out of their car and everything is centrally located in our parking lot. And then we also, you know, the big thing is drive-in movies. We have looked at that. A stage package, including a screen, the FM transmitters, the licensing, the equipment, the setup and tear down, that would cost about $12,500. You add in the other expenses of security, cleaning and janitorial, staffing the night of the event, and insurance, you know, your expenses add up fairly quickly. So they would be estimated at about $14,000. So if we were to do something like that, we would need 565 cars at $25 per car. And that would generate $14,125. And that would show an earned revenue of about 120 bucks. Now keep in mind, we at the PAC only have 172 parking spaces and 8 handicap spaces or ADA spaces. So the space needed for something like that to make it feasible, we don't have it here at our property. I have talked with Tim Johnson to see if there was an opportunity at the mall or some other properties that have a much larger acreage, that it could be something that might be a possibility. But again, a lot of work for 120 bucks. And this would be something of what that stage and setup would look like. This was actually done at one of our other facilities. This is at a 600-acre area in Arizona where they have multiple baseball complexes and spring training facilities. So they have a large footprint to hold that. And then the next slide is a kind of overview of what that looks like. That's approximately 560 cars. This is an event that was done in Denmark. And we're seeing those pop up all over the country. But again, you need some type of vast amount of space in order to make something like that work. So with that, I know that we're on a limited time. So I'm open for any questions or comments or anything that anybody has.
Okay.
Oh, sorry,
Just a
I
reminder
just
that you are-
unmute myself. And on second. All right. Committee members, Linda Kochma. You have your hands up.
Yes. I'm trying to unmute myself. It was kept disappearing on me. You know, I didn't see anything about weddings. I'm just wondering if weddings would be part of what you've been looking at. I mean, we haven't been having any weddings, but I'm sure that there must be a pent-up demand.
Yeah, most definitely. We're always looking at weddings. You know, I have a young lady that is stopping by tomorrow with a signed contract for a wedding in 2021. But you know, right now, again, we're kind of hamstrung with how many people we can host, and based on the phased approach that the state guidelines and King County guidelines. So most of the weddings that we have had or wedding receptions are in the 200, 250 guest count. But so unfortunately right now, we're not allowed to do that.
But I think that the state is going to be, I heard that the state would be open for everything after July 31st. So, I'm wondering if, we need to be watching, and because we need to advertise, and I don't know if that's a possibility.
Yeah, I
We
mean,
have such a beautiful facility.
No, and everything is a moving target, and we continue to have those conversations with event planners. I had a conversation with an event planner today. They're hesitant about doing an event in October because they don't know what it looks like, and that's a board meeting. They have some of their board members that would be flying in from out of state. We have hosted their organization in the past. But they're just still a little hesitant to do that. Unfortunately, this past 2 days, we've lost 2 events. One that was scheduled at the end of August, another one that was scheduled in November because they canceled the tour. So, we're seeing that unfortunately all too often, just because of so many uncertainties. As well as once we are able to open up, I think Adea mentioned this last week, excuse me, is are people going to want to come out and be in a close environment, wear a face mask for a 90-minute performance, those types of things. So the jury is still out. With everything that we've seen in the industry standards is that people are looking for live entertainment and are willing to go out. But, again, what does that social distancing look like? And the first and number one thing is making sure that our staff and our guests are safe.
Okay, thank you.
Council President Honda.
Thank you. So, Brian, thanks for the report and for giving us all that information. If the PAC were to hold movies after we can put people inside, you do need a license to do that? Do you need additional equipment that you might not have?
No, we do not. We would just need the license. Depending on the type of movie, the license ranges anywhere from $600 to $635. If we were to show Frozen 2 or Trolls, that's, a more relative newer release. So it would be $600 for the license for that. But we have all the equipment and everything in-house.
So if I were to take my grandson to a movie after we're allowed to do that, he could sit next to me, right? Because we're related, or do family members have to be spaced out 4 or 5 seats?
No, you could, because it's a family member. So I believe it would be, I don't know the exact verbiage, but I think, it can be 4 people from the same family or household.
Okay. Do you have this is an awkward question, the programs line up for 21, 22, or have you done one, or are you just going to try to get the shows that we didn't get this year?
So actually for 2020, 2021, we were working on that season. Unfortunately, again, some of those shows have canceled because they've canceled the tour. Some of the Broadway shows aren't going out until January or February of 2021. So right now, we probably won't have like a full season like we have had in the past. We might scale it down to like a mini series or a mini package where it might be some tribute bands where you can buy, a group, those 3 shows. Maybe it's comedy night with 3 comedians because that production costs are very inexpensive for a comedian. So we're looking at some of those types of things currently right now to have some stuff in the fall when we're able to reopen.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan. Committee members, Copan.
Yeah, Brian, I just wanted to thank you for your innovative events. I think you're definitely thinking outside of the 4 walls of the building, which is important. I definitely see there's not a lot of payoff though for those from the standpoint of revenue, but I guess it all helps, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, we've looked at streaming concerts. The cost to put one of those on through our Facebook was $2,500. You have to have the camera people and those types of things to get it to the Facebook. We actually had one, Spectra Venue Management, worked with a artist out of Seattle and played it in a but live streamed in 11 different facilities. We were scheduled to have that one to play on our Facebook live stream on June 11th. But unfortunately, because of the protests and the things happening in Seattle, that artist could not access their studio. So we had to postpone a live streaming event, unfortunately.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else? Brian, thank you. This is very helpful. I know that we are in a very uncommon situation right now, and I really appreciate the work that you do and your staff do to come up with ways to save us money and also generate a little bit of money. So I really appreciate that. I have a question. You mentioned about the capacity of the theater in phase 4 that we could in theory fit 188 people in that theater. That is less than 1/3 of our normal capacity, right?
Correct. Yep, it's I believe it's about 22%.
Okay, so then is it fair to assume that if this phase 4 continue for a little bit longer, then we can project our income around 22% then?
I mean, I think it's hard to put a value because it's going to vary on event by event. We're really looking at a lot of regional or local artists because the cost or the fee for that particular performance or production would be much, much less than a national touring show. And again, when you can only sell 188 tickets, at the end of the day, you just can't make the numbers work. Or ticket prices would be $200 a piece.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you
all
very
right,
much. Thank you for the time, and we hope that we'll all be together again.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, committee. May I have a motion?
There's no motion because this is information only.
Sorry. Thank you, Linda.
You're welcome.
All right. Moving on to next item, vouchers for May 2020. Ade.
Chase, will you get that started?
Yep. Good evening, Council Chair Tran, Council President Honda, and Council Committee members. Before you, starting on page 83 to page 121 are the accounts payable vouchers from 5/16/2020 to 6/15/2020 and payroll vouchers from 5/1 to 5/31, totaling in the amount of $3,359,629.52 and payroll vouchers of $3,378,403.61. And we'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. I believe Ade had already answered one of those questions.
Yes, he did. Community members, do you have any questions? Council President Honda.
No, I already asked my questions, and they were answered. So thank you very much, Ade.
Oh, thank you. I see your hands up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll put it down.
No, that's okay. All right. No questions. You get off easy, Ade.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Well, thank you,
Cap-
Council President, though. I think I feel fulfilled at this answering one.
Right, may I have a motion, please?
You know, I really, I'm sorry, I really did look for more, but it was just kind of, you know, I know there's things going on, but not as much as normal, so.
Yeah, actually, because a majority of our staff are working from home, yes, and you will see some of that. You will see some of that sign in the monthly financial report, because a lot of people are working from home. Our spending is down too, just as the revenue is down. So that is a good thing in some way. So I think even though yes, we're still spending some money, but the spending is a little bit less.
Oh, thank you.
So Chair Tran, I move to forward the vouchers to the July 7th, 2020 consent agenda for approval.
I'll second that.
We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any other discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
The matter passed 3-0. Okay, moving on to our last item for today, monthly financial report, May 2020.
For the monthly financial report, I would just like to actually thank the council members, and especially those of you that were here 3 years ago when we did the utility tax on water and sewer. I know we attempted, the first round was 2016, and before we pulled that back, before we made another attempt, and I think right, wrong, or indifference, I think just going all the way to the Supreme Court to be able to have the fight as to whether we have the right or the power to do that or not, I think is a little bit reassuring. And I think some of the cities that were sitting on the fence, even though, you know, they didn't help us in this litigation, I think all of them will probably jump on board. And I totally understand Lake Haven and the like, the position, because they couldn't roll over just for the federal way. If they did, other municipalities will come unglued and go after them. So I think they did, but it was a fair argument, and I think that I don't think there's any hard feeling in this. And but you know, I need to thank the council for stepping up. I think there was a lot of pressure on you at that time, and I think thank you for standing firm in your belief. So going to page 124, as I presented last week, the sales tax revenue, I think looking at what it is, the year to date, I think we are just about a little bit over $200,000 below the budget, which I think is very, very good. But I'm still holding my prayer till we see what the June looks like, because June will be the full month of the closure, which will be the April. So our short revenue, even though we're just short by 200,000 in May, that was just half of the month of March. So that is so good. And I think based on what we see, you know, as I shared with you in the last meeting, our major sales tax provider, Walmart, Lowe's, Home Depot, Costco, despite the lockdown, they were still doing very well. And Safeway, so they were still doing well. I'm hoping, you know, I hope within a month I can make it 3 for 3. I hope the revenue for the month of June will not be as bad as some of the other entities. You take a place like Tequila, their major source of revenue is coming from the mall. Our major source of revenue is not coming from the mall. It's coming from those individual stores. And that is part of why we're sitting well. And again, we didn't budget the Lake Haven revenue. So I think that will be, I'm hoping that, you know, the council and the mayor and council we'll have some conversation on that later. So I think that will come through. I think yes, looking at our CD permit and fees, I think that is down. That is down by about 6. And again, based on my presentation last week, I'm expecting that before the end of the year, it will be over $1 million that we will be short in that line item. Utility tax, even though I'm showing in here that we're below, but when we amend our budget and the utility tax from water and soil is adjusted, that will be a little bit different. But of course, we are low in all the other current operations that we levy utility tax on. Business license, that is one of the only few areas with some good hope. So we're actually 10% above where we're supposed to be, and that is partly because of our signing with the state. And just for the benefit of the citizens that are listening, some of the citizens, when people knock on their door, they see businesses, they are sending me an email. This business knock on my door. Do they have business license in Federal Way? And we're going after them. You know, we're sending them, you know, we understand you're knocking doors at this place and our record doesn't show you have a business license. Yes, it's only 80 something dollars, but $80 here, $80 there, you make money. So I think our business license is doing relatively well. So moving on to page 126, again, that gives you the summary. Our sales tax is down. Our admission tax, of course, is down because of some of the sound transit activity. They've closed some of the movie theaters. So, and of course, because of the COVID-19 also. So the admission tax is down by almost 53%. So although the total revenue, expected revenue in there, we're looking at less than $1 million, but you know, we're down by more than 52%. So the total revenue in general fund, we're down as of the end of May by just about 10%. But the good news, if you look at our spending also, based on our comparison with the budget, our spending also is down by about 9%. Those are part of the things that will probably help us a little bit. So our spending, like I mentioned earlier, because we don't have as many employees, you know, working, you know, either in the city hall or some of the other facilities, our spending is also down a little bit. So that is good. On page 131, our REIT is, of course, as expected, that is also down. The REIT, yes, even if it's up, we can now use it for personnel. We can now use it for any of those things. It can only be used for construction and infrastructure, but nonetheless, it is significantly low. Hotel, motel, you know, if you look at our, again on page 131, the revenue for the month of May, you know, 6,000, and usually we get, this time of year, we get about 25,000. So of course, with the lockdown, that is where we are on that. And permit activity, which is at the building and land, again, usually we run, last year, around this time, we were doing about 800,000. So for the month of May, we did 143. So again, that is due to the pandemic. And on page 137, as of now, and as soon as we sign the contract with the state, majority of this COVID-19 update, 174,000, almost 175, are part of what we will go after the state to recoup. You know, I think we will, the mayor will sign the contract, and the moment we sign the contract with the Department of Commerce and all of these things are lined up, we'll be able to get this. Remember, this will come out of the 2.96 million that the mayor was talking about at the last meeting, where the council decided that we would do 1 million for the first phase of grant to the businesses. So, but the beauty of this is we can recoup all of the costs that are related to COVID-19 expenses. And right from the start, we started coding that and we started tracking that individually. So that is where we are on that. I think that is the end of my report.
Thank you, Ade. Committee members, you have any questions? Council members? All right, no questions. Okay, if there's no questions, may I have the motion, please?
Oh, I have a question. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I couldn't find my thing in time. Ade, for the Lake Haven utility tax that we'll be getting, do you know how much is in the bank that has been saved over the last couple of years?
I think the estimate that we estimated is about $1 million a year. I think for the month of for the 2018 and 2019, I'm estimating about 1.8.
And does that come to us in one lump sum? Do they transfer it all over to us?
Because it's sitting in the bank, I think we'll be entitled to that because it's sitting in the bank. So the court will have to release it, and I'll let if Ryan has anything to add to it, the court will have to release it.
So what happens next is the Supreme Court issues mandamus down to the lower court and says basically take all actions consistent with this decision. So that's about 30 days out that action will happen, and then the lower court will do whatever it needs to do to resolve the case consistent with the Supreme Court's decision. So we've won on all the law. The court has already reserved and said it's not going to get into what is taxable and what's not taxable as far as business versus government usage. We can't tax them for fire hydrants, is the bottom line. So I expect what will happen is the court will just say, pay the tax, Lake Haven, and Lake Haven will pay it. And then it's up to us to decide whether or not we agree that they've paid all of it, or if we're going to let it go for a couple of years and then audit them, or if we're going to audit them right from the get-go. I mean, that's a whole different decision process. So as far as the money in escrow goes, I don't see any reason they wouldn't just pay it all. They owe it to us. That's why they put it aside, so it wouldn't be a shock to them if they lost the case. So they should give it to us all in one lump sum. But ultimately, the court has to decide issue orders. So I expect all of that to happen hopefully within 60 days,
So
assuming
are
that
you
they
saying,
don't fight.
oh, are you saying that it goes back to the lower court and then there could be more discussion about it?
So
Or
what happens
another
is
decision,
the lower court's already ruled as well.
right?
So the Supreme Court's decision, this gets into some of the nuance of the law. It was a 8-1 decision, but really it was a 6-6 decision that said the lower court got it all right except for whether or not they had standing to make constitutional challenges. And 2 of the justices said, no, I think the lower court got everything right, and they should have gone to the merits of the constitutional challenges and ruled in our favor, which is what the lower court did. So 8 justices all agree that we get the money, but there's some disagreement on whether or not the lower court messed up on whether or not they should have heard the constitutional challenges. Ultimately, that's all lawyers just talking. I don't think it has anything to do with the ultimate end of the case, but it does need to go back to the lower court so that that court can issue orders consistent with the Supreme Court's decision. So it's a bit of a paper chase and it takes a little bit of time, but none of it's going to change the ultimate outcome, which is that we prevailed on the main issue, which is our authority to tax. So the only thing that the Lake Haven and the other utilities might bicker with us about is they might try to shortchange us and not send us what we think is the full tax bill, and then we'd have to call them on that. But I don't think they're going to play those games. I think it's pretty clear. A day went in great detail about what we think is taxable, and we didn't hear a lot of. I think that it was a bit of a show. I think they were saying it's unclear so that they'd have something to argue. But at the end of the day, it's pretty clear what is fire hydrant related and what isn't. So we might have a little bit of things to clarify with them on just some of the finer points of capacity, about how much water it takes to run a fire hydrant. But we'll fight over that one little bit. The rest of it, they should just pay. So
Okay.
I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. I think it's going to probably be pretty seamless now that we've won the case. But
Is there anything that the council has to do with this, or
Nope.
we're
you've already
okay?
in the council's eyes, you passed the tax. It was always lawful. It should have always been paid. They owe us the money, and that's our position. So there's no future no further action needed.
Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised. Just as an aside, I wouldn't be surprised if the utilities don't run to the legislature now and get a cap put on this type of tax. They've fought hard not to have this addressed at the legislative level. Every other type of utility tax is explicitly authorized and capped at the state at the state level. And Lake Haven isn't. Lake Haven, and I say Lake Haven because they're big dog in this, in the lobbying world for utilities. And I think that we will see action at the state level where they'll probably cap this tax. But so we might see that we're at the highest level we can ever tax the utilities, the water utility, at our current rate. But
All right. Thanks.
anyway,
Great, thank you. Committee members, Copan, go ahead, please.
Thank you. A day. Have we had any conversations with Highline or Midway regarding their accruals?
No, we have not. I think one of them, based on the agreement that we had with them several years ago, we just made agreement that you do the hydrant, we'll do this. So I think
no, that's just Tacoma. So Highline and the other two should be paying us utility tax just like Lake Haven.
but I think the Highline, I think they are part of the lawsuit, but I think the number that they serve in the city of Federal Way is very, very small.
It's small. Yeah, I think
They're
it's
both very
small for Highline, and I think Midway also has service in our area. I think there's a total of 4. Tacoma as being the 4th.
Correct.
And Tacoma wasn't a part of this, at least not to this point.
Right.
But we haven't talked to either Midway or Highline at this point.
No.
Okay. All right.
I mean, they expressed the same position. They were all parties to the lawsuit, and they've all been paying an escrow, as far as I know. But
Right. So it's just a
They
matter
just-
of how
they're-
much.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't see any hands up, so thank you for that information. I think we are ready to vote on this.
I'll make a motion then. I move to forward the May 2020 monthly financial report to the July 7th, 2020 consent agenda for approval.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. Is there any other discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. All right, it's passed 3-0. That is the last item on this meeting. And our next meeting is going to be July 28, 2020. And I'm not even sure if we are going to be meeting in person or still on Zoom. So I would assume we are going to meet on Zoom again until then.
Let's hope it's in
okay.
person.
I hope so, but we'll see. Well, again, thank you, council members. Thank you, staff, for another great meeting. And I hope you will enjoy the week and stay home and stay safe.
And wear a mask.
And wear a mask in the public.
See you all.
Bye.
All right.
Bye now.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye, everyone. Good
Bye,
night.
Lydia.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Susan, see you soon, right?
Yes.
Good
All
night,
right.
everybody.
Do we
All
have
right,
something
yeah.
tonight?
Yes.
Oh, look. We do?
Okay.
Okay.
I think so. Bye-bye.
Bye.